So you're planning on leaving the US, you're trying to get out of Babylon. This video is to help you, to give you some information about different countries, about living out of the US if you've never done that before. There are lots of options, there are lots of possibilities. First, to the smaller group, those of you who have a lot of money and have no money problems as far as traveling and leaving, which I know that isn't the majority of you, you have many more options. You can go to just about any place. I would choose, if I were in that situation, I would choose definitely countries that, at least for now, have a favorable opinion of Americans or North Americans, because you might be Canadian too, and you should get out of Babylon if you're Canadian. So you can go to Europe, to Mediterranean locations, and you could always still go to Latin America, except for Mexico. I wouldn't go to Mexico, it's too close to the US. And many of you know about the North American Union and those things too. There are some people who go to Pacific Islands, South Pacific Islands. Those are good too. Definitely not Hawaii, it's still part of the United States. Any part of the United States I would definitely not go to, and you should scratch off your list most or all of the English-speaking countries like England, Australia, New Zealand, even South Africa. I don't know how good that would be, but that's a possibility, and they do speak English there. That's a better possibility than Australia, England, definitely not Canada. So basically, scratch off your list all of the English-speaking countries, and I wouldn't go to any of the islands in the Caribbean, which would be very expensive also, like the Virgin Islands or Bermuda or Jamaica or any place around that close to the US, and Puerto Rico. I would scratch all of those off your list. They're all too close to the US. So now, for those of you who don't have too much money, you don't really need that much to leave the US, but it would be nice to have a few $1,000s in your pocket when you leave. So try to do all you can to have some cash on you. If you could convert a small amount of that, maybe 10% of whatever you have, into gold and silver, that's not a bad idea either, because if the money markets crash, or we should say when they crash, it would be nice to have some gold or silver. We don't know what's going to happen with gold or silver either, but the value of it will probably go way up when the dollar and euro and any of the other monies or currencies crash. Okay. So if you have a few $1,000s, that's pretty good. You get your, basically $1,000 will buy you a round-trip ticket to most countries that are not too far away from the US. Asian countries are going to cost you a little bit more. Okay, so I recommend for many of you, you could go to some of the, if you don't want to have to learn another language, you could go to maybe Cyprus, or possibly, not sure about this, possibly Crete. But some of the islands in the Mediterranean aren't bad, and they have so much tourism there that most people, or a lot of the people there, will speak English to you, even though English isn't the native language there. Like Cyprus, on the Greek side, the southern part of it, they speak Greek. But a lot of people, most people there know English. That's a pretty good place to go. If you want to go to Israel and venture that, which it involves a lot of complications because you cannot stay in Israel for too long. I'll talk about visas and stuff like that in a few minutes, hopefully if I remember. You could go to Malta. I've never been there, but I know that a lot of the people on Malta speak English also. And there are lots of little places like that you can go to. Holland. In Holland, almost everybody speaks English in Holland, and they speak it really well. They're amazing. The Dutch speak English so well. I think in Sweden, in Norway too, maybe Denmark, not so sure about Denmark, but I know that the Swedes speak a lot of English. Now those places aren't as inexpensive to go to. Any place in Europe, because of the European Union, it's going to be more expensive to live there. Europe is doing pretty well now, and so it's because they're doing well, it's expensive to live there. Your dollars are not going to go so far, Canadian or American dollars. So I highly recommend third world countries. Now, believe it or not, there are some third world countries where you can live quite nicely. especially for those of you, and I know this isn't the majority, but for those of you who have some type of monthly income, which is like a disability payment or a retirement, a pension, which might not even be too much for the United States, it's going to be quite enough in just about any third world country. And what I'm talking about is as little as a check of only, let's say, $500 or $600 a month. And most disability and most other checks are more than that. But even if you're only getting maybe $500 or $600 a month, in most countries in Latin America, for example, you're going to be able to, you'll make do. You'll live okay. Especially if you could supplement your income with some type of English classes or something. But you should be able to live on about $500 or $600 a month, even $400 a month in some places. I know, it's incredible what the rest of the world lives on. And I'm not talking about, you're not going to live in a grass hut. You're going to have an apartment. You'll have, I lived in Peru. When I lived in southern Peru, I was living on about $400 to $500 a month. I had a beautiful 3-bedroom apartment, as nicer than any apartment I had in the U.S. I mean, good quality, a really good quality 3-bedroom apartment with an office, 3 bathrooms, a big kitchen, all of the, a comfortably furnished apartment. When I rented it unfurnished, I bought my own furniture. I had a maid or a housekeeper come to the house 3 days a week, cook, clean, and do everything. I could afford for her services. My food, internet. I didn't have cable. I didn't have internet. I had cable TV. But internet would have just been a few dollars more, maybe $10 or $20 more per month. And I was living on about $400 a month. Everything, all my costs. That's southern Peru. I highly recommend going to Arequipa, Peru. It might be a little bit more expensive right now, but in Arequipa, Peru, you can probably live on about $400 to $500 a month. So that's a really good place to go, especially if you like dry weather, because it's kind of semi-desert there, but they have public water, and it's a nice city, educated people. It is definitely third world, but it's nice, and you can live in a nice part of town. The best part of town is called Cayma, spelled C-A-Y-M-A. You could just go right there and look for apartments there. They're going to be between $200 and $300 a month. You shouldn't pay over $300 a month rent. As of 2009, I have friends who live there, and they live in nice 3-bedroom apartments, and they pay around $210, $220 a month for a nice apartment. As an American, they're going to ask for more, but you have to work on it until you can get the fair, just price that you should get, which is the same as the locals pay. Food and services and everything there. They have little shopping malls, theaters, supermarkets. You're not going to get all the same things you have in the U.S., of course, but you won't get that anywhere. Every country has different things to offer. I highly recommend Peru because they have delicious food too. The people are friendly and they speak Spanish very well, very clearly. You will have to learn Spanish though. Not a lot of people know English. A few do. Other places. Latin America is really a good place to go. I've lived in Chile, lived in Peru, and I live in Colombia right now. There are many places. Medellin, Colombia, where I live right now, is a really beautiful city. The people are friendly. The cost of living is slightly higher than in Peru, a couple $100 more per month. Everything is just more expensive here for some reason. I'm going to continue this in some more videos talking about different, giving you different advice and recommendations on an ongoing basis to help people who are trying to make those plans to get out of the country. I wanted to talk about visas. Let me just tell you quickly that visas in most countries, for most people, when you go to another country, as soon as you go into the country, they just give you an automatic tourist visa. You don't have to apply for it or anything. And the tourist visa lasts for 90 days. Not 3 months, 90 days. Count them carefully and make sure you renew it before the 90 days are up. Don't wait till the last minute. Sometimes they charge you fines. So you have to actually physically leave the country and come back into the country to renew, to get another 90 days. Some countries like Colombia only let you do that twice. The reason I'm able to live here is I have a working visa. So I'll continue this message in the future. Take care.